Hello and welcome to the Reviews Brothers, where this time round I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to show you some of my collection. This time it's going to be the Sega Mega Drive and my collection of Mega Drive games that I've got. It's not the biggest collection out there, but I've got a few consoles, a few games, and some good ones that are worth showing off. So, how about I shut the hell up, you press that subscribe button, and we take a look at some games. Let's start with the console itself. I actually have two of the original Sega Mega Drive. This was the first model to be released. I've got two because basically I got them both for a good deal and they both came with a bundle of games that worked out cheaper than if I was going to buy the games separately. So I thought, well, I might as well buy both, hey. They each only came with one controller, but that's okay. It means I've got plenty of controllers still. And there's the Sega Mega Drive 2, the second model they brought out. That's the only other model of the Mega Drive that I have. It's a little bit smaller, a bit more compact. Honestly, I don't really like it as much. It feels a bit cheaper. But you know, you got to have them both if you can. So I'm glad I've got it at least. And here's all three of my Mega Drives in all their glory. Like I said, I'm glad to have all three. It takes up a bit of space, but hey, that doesn't matter. There are the other smaller models you can get out there, but I'm not really fussed about any others. I'll stick with these ones, I think. They all work perfectly fine, so I'm happy. I do also have the Sega Mega Drive Master System Converter or Power-Based Converter. This lets me play my Sega Master System games and cartridges on my Sega Mega Drive. Here's what it looks like actually in the console. It looks pretty sweet if you ask me, but it does actually only work on this Model 1 system here. It won't fit in the Model 2, but I don't mind, I prefer this one anyway. Here's what happens if you do try and put it in the Model 2, it just doesn't fit. Now there might be an adapter or maybe a second model, I don't really know, I don't need one, but you know, it's nice to have in the collection. And now let's take a look at some games. So I do have quite a few games, some in boxes, some just cartridge only. I've got a lot of the ones that everyone's expected to have. I've got some random weird ones that I find. I actually tried to pick up the ones that are reasonably priced that I've never heard of before just to see what they're like. And I've got, you know, a little bit of everything. Let's take a closer look. Here's some that everyone's expected to have. I've got most of the Sonic games. I don't have Sonic 3 yet, but it's on the list. And I've got the Mega Games 2, which has Golden Axe, Streets of Rage and Revenge of Shinobi, which is probably the only one I'm bothered about, and Echo the Dolphin. Sonic and Knuckles there, Vector Man, Kid Chameleon, Altered Beast, which is one of those games that people think they love, but it ain't that good. Toe Jam and Earl 1 and 2. I'm one of the few people I think that thinks Toe Jam and Earl 2 is actually much better than the first one, but hey, you got to have them both, really, don't you? So yeah, I'm only really missing Sonic 3. The 16-bit systems had some really great Disney games. I've got a few. Here's Castle of Illusion, which is a lot of people's favourite. Quackshot, starring Donald Duck. Aladdin, of course, another one that people seem to love, but again, I prefer the SNES one. Toy Story, which is actually really fun, but a bit flawed. I've got World of Illusion, which is one of the sequels to Castle of Illusion, which is a very good game as well. And of course, The Lion King, another tough as balls movie title. And here's a little bit of Castle of Illusion for you. This is a really great 2D platform game. Obviously you play as Mickey, and of course Minnie has been kidnapped because she's a woman, and that's what they're good for in the 90s. So you got to go and rescue her from, is it Miserable, I think is the woman? As you can tell, I haven't done any kind of looking anything up for this video, not that I do in any of my other ones, but I haven't even bothered with the script for this one. But anyway, this is a really great 2D platform game. It's one of those classics that everyone has, and what's good is that this one's actually still a pretty cheap price. It's not the most difficult game. You'll likely finish it probably the second time you play through it if you're sort of half decent. But the levels here are really great. It's got a good variety. The controls take a little getting used to. They're a little bit stiff, but the controls are decent. The graphics are great. The music is excellent. It's just overall a really fun game, and definitely one that everyone should have in their collection, especially for the price it goes for. I got it for £6 or £7 complete in box. So yeah, very happy with that. Check it out. I've got a couple of other games also based on cartoons, but Looney Tunes this time. So I've got a couple of the Tasmania games. Actually, I think that's both the Tasmania games released for the system, and Sylvester and Tweety in KG Capers, which is a interesting game. And this is Sylvester and Tweety in KG Capers. A little bit of gameplay for you. It's a kind of alright platform kind of game. You play as Sylvester in this, and pretty much your goal on every level is to catch Tweety. So you just have to explore the quite large levels where Tweety's always trying to run away from you, and you've got to use anything you can to get to him. So you'll have to find items that will help you, like you might find a bone, for example, which you'll use to throw to distract a dog so you can get past a dog. You might find boxing gloves so you can fight things. Little things like that. It's not a great game. It looks great, the graphics are excellent, but the animation is choppy and the controls are very wonky. It feels really floaty and imprecise, and the platforming itself just isn't very good. It's often hard to know what you can and can't jump on. You got to find switches and things, as you can see here actually, to kind of open up new paths or close new paths. It's just, it's a fine game. It was cheap, which is, the main thing. That's a theme for all the games I've got here. But it's one of those games that it's a bit of a curiosity. I do kind of like the idea where it's, literally a game of cat and mouse. Well, cat and bird, where you're catching Tweety. It's got a good sense of humour. It kind of matches the cartoon, but it's not really one that I'd recommend. But it can be fun for a few minutes. But the controls are what really bring it down. The controls just really need sorting out. But you never know, you might have fun with it, but I wouldn't really recommend it. And here's the rest of my licensed games. So I've got both the Turtles games for the system, which I absolutely love, the Ninja Turtles. I've got Micro Machines, some great racing games, Cool Spot. There's quite a few food-based ones on the systems, which is a bit odd at the time. Robocop vs Terminator, which is one of my favourite games on the system. Global Gladiators, which is a McDonald's themed game, very randomly. You've got the Captain America and the Avengers there, which is not a great port of a pretty crappy arcade game, if in my opinion, but it's superheroes, so I wanted to have it. And Krusty Super Funhouse, which is actually a surprisingly fun little puzzle platform game. So generally, these are actually a surprisingly high quality. And I've got a few fighting games for the system. I've lumped wrestling games in with fighting as well. Now, I was a Super Nintendo kid, really, so the Mega Drive really just didn't impress me with its fighting games. I didn't think that Street Fighter or anything were anywhere near as good as the Super Nintendo games. I know people won't agree with me there. I actually even think that Mortal Kombat is better on the Super Nintendo. But as you can see, I've got Eternal Champions, which is a bit of a given, even though I think it's pretty crap. WrestleMania, which, it's not that great, but it's kind of fun to dick about with. And of course I've got Turtles Tournament Fighters, which, again, is the worst version of that game. You should really play the Super Nintendo if you're going to play one, but they're not bad. Wrestle War is an interesting game that I'll show you some footage of in just a minute because I'm nice like that. And of course I've got Mortal Kombat, which again in my opinion isn't as good as the Super Nintendo version. It's just everyone thinks that it is because it has the blood code. But actually I think the controls and hit detection are worse in this version. But hey, I don't particularly like any of the Mortal Kombat games, so don't take my word for it. I've always been a Street Fighter guy and never been that fond of Mortal Kombat. The AI is always a bit crap and cheats a hell of a lot. But if you like it, then you're that cool, edgy kid. Go you. And as promised, this is Wrestle War. This is a pretty interesting wrestling game. It's got a very strange perspective. The characters are huge in it, and a lot of them are obvious rip-offs of real wrestlers that they obviously didn't have the license for, but that's fine. It's fun to see them coming up. The controls are very stiff, and it's one of those games where you kind of got to button mash and hope for the best. I don't quite understand how the throws work, but there is actually quite a lot of moves to do here, and I actually really have fun playing this. Again, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a particularly good game, but it's fun and it's, again, super cheap. I paid, I think, £2 or £3 for it. It's definitely worth that. It would be a lot of fun with another player, but obviously, as you all know, I don't have any friends, so, I can't try that. But yeah, if you want a weird wrestling game for cheap for your Mega Drive, then this is probably one to check out. I'd recommend it. What's cool is that the Mega Drive had some kind of weird cartridge shapes available for it, mostly by EA, who had these longer cartridges with a yellow clip on them. I have a feeling this might be before they were licensed properly, but I could be very wrong with that. I usually am, and obviously I don't bother looking things up. But yeah, I've got a few of these games here. I've got Lotus 2, which is a cool driving game, Populous, which is a fun sort of a god game, Road Rash 2, which is of course another must-have for most people, and I've got Shadow of the Beast, which is one of those games that I always think I really like, and then I play it and I go, well, this is not as good as I thought it was. In fact, it's kind of crappy. But yeah, the EA ones are interesting. I've actually got a few more, but they're in their boxes, which we'll kind of have a look at shortly. But yeah, these ones are cool to have, and it's a nice thing to kind of add to your collection, the weird-looking carts. And this here is Lotus 2. It's actually a pretty decent racing game. I have a really good time with this one. It's nothing kind of, no frills really. It's just a case of you choose from a whole bunch of Lotus vehicles. I know nothing about cars, so they all mean nothing to me, unfortunately. But they all handle well enough, and you get some nice tracks to race on and other races to race against. You've got usual championship modes, time trial modes, and so on. It's just a fun, decent racing game. There's not a whole lot to say about it, really. It looks decent. The controls are actually very good, and you even get like wind effects and things like that, so you need to compensate for blustery days, which is pretty cool, and there's a few hazards on the track as well. But yeah, it's a fast, fun racing game that I would recommend checking out. I've got a couple of other strange cartridges. There's the Micro Machines one from Codemasters and Sonic and Knuckles, which of course you have to plug the other cartridge on top of. I do want to get the other Micro Machines game that actually has 2 controller ports built into the cartridge itself to let you play up to 4 players, which is such a cool idea. In fact, I think you can play 8 players because you can do 2 people per controller, or that may be on the other systems. Not entirely sure. But yeah, that's one I'd like to get for the collection. But yeah, I love the Micro Machines games, and it's nice that it's on a funky cartridge. Except when you try and stack them on your shelf, because then they don't quite stack properly. That's a pain in the ass, but it's a small gripe. And here are the rest of my games. So as you can see, I've got Urban and Desert Strike all in their box, and James Pond 2, which is a really cool game. I really like playing that on the Master System as well. Generations Lost, which is one that I never hear anyone talking about. Space Harrier 2, which is one that not a lot of people are a big fan of, as well as Twin Hawk, which is a pretty good scrolling shooter. Chuck Rock, which is actually one of my favourite games for the system. Again, it's another game I know a lot of people don't like, but I think it's great. And yeah, I've got Bubsy, but I don't like Bubsy. You got some weird ones here like Marvel Land, Decap Attack, Pugsy, Green Dog, and Pitfall, and Decap Attack, which is a great game. So these are actually some pretty good platform games. I actually even quite like Green Dog, believe it or not. I know it's not a great game, but it's a bit of fun, you know. And here is Generations Lost. Again, it's one that no one ever talks about. It's an interesting 2D platform action game. It really reminds me of the X-Men games as well, which you can probably see in the graphics and animation and just the way it all controls. You're like a time traveler-y guy who has to go around to all these different periods doing weird things. You've got a cool grapple hook mechanic, which is kind of fun to use, but can take a little while to get used to. It's a very difficult game. It's got some stiff control, but there's something about it that I kind of like. The hit detection is very wonky, and it is a game where you'll really need to learn the levels because you need to solve some simple puzzles and find switches to open doors, that sort of thing. The combat's very basic, but you know, it does the job. I would say it's an interesting game, and I don't know if it's necessarily a hidden gem, but it's one that people don't ever talk about. But I'm kind of surprised because maybe it's one of those games that looks a bit more impressive than it actually is. But it's definitely an interesting one, and if you like challenging different games, then this is well worth having a look at. And this here is Marvel Land. It's another one that people don't really talk about a whole lot. It's a pretty fun action platform game. It's a very early game for the system, and you can really see that in the design and things as well. I think it's actually a port of an arcade game, though I could be wrong, I usually am. It's really surprisingly quite tough. You can only take one hit before you die, which is a real problem in a lot of places in this game. But it's got some fun mechanics. You just run and jump on enemies' heads. It's bright and colourful and looks decent enough. And it's got a nice bit of variety in the levels. It is a little slow paced, and somehow the kind of slow speed of it actually makes it harder to control and to get your precise jumping and things like that, which is very interesting. But yeah, it's one of those games that I never hear anyone talk about, really. It might have been mentioned on probably by John Riggs or GameSack. They're the most likely places to have talked about this game, but I must have got it for a good price, because otherwise I wouldn't have it. But again, it's another one where I kind of see a game that I don't really hear about or see anywhere else. I mean, you see your Sonics and your Streets of Rages everywhere, so when you see a game like this, it does make me want to pick it up, because you know, I like to have variety in my collections. A bit of a gaming hipster, I suppose. It's like everyone's got the other games, so you don't need to get them. They're easy to get hold of. But games like this that no one really talks about, they're the ones I'm more interested in. And this one, you know, yeah, it's fun. It's difficult, but it's worth playing. And the last game I want to show you quickly is Twin Hawk, which is a pretty cool scrolling shooter, vertically scrolling shooter, where set during kind of World War II era. Well, World War One actually, I think, by the looks of things. Of course, you're just a plane flying upwards, shooting everything you see. It's really fun. Again, there's not a whole lot to say about it, really. It's kind of your typical shooter, and if you've played any, you've kind of played this, really. What's cool, though, is you get all the nice power-ups, which will give you way more firepower. And also, something I really like about it is instead of a bomb attack, you can see in the bottom right there, you've got some grey planes. That's essentially your bomb. But what that does is it just calls a whole squadron of planes to fight alongside you. So there's like 6 other planes which all kind of fly in formation with you. And they stay on the screen until they get shot down. So you can kind of use them to attack enemies. Here they are now, look. And they'll stay on screen until they'll shoot when you shoot. And if they get hit by enemy fire, they'll fall out of the sky. So you kind of want to try and keep them alive as much as you can, but a lot of the time you have no choice because they barely move. They're pretty much static on the screen, but yeah, it's fun. But you know, it looks fine. The graphics aren't anything special. They're pretty standard for the system and the time, but it looks decent and it plays really well. It is a little slow, but it's a really fun game. It's tough. I've only managed to make it to the second or third sort of area, which is nice, even on the easy difficulty, because I'm not that great at shooters, but I actually really like playing them. This one is a little pricey. I wouldn't normally get it, but it was actually bought for me as a gift. But it's usually a little out of what I would like to spend, especially on a game like this. But you know, it's a good game, and that's the main thing, so it is worth having in the collection. So yeah, one to check out if you haven't played it already. And the final thing I'll show you is I do have the EverDrive MD. So this is the flash cart for the Sega Mega Drive. On the top of it there, it's actually got an SD card slot. And so what you can do is you can just load ROMs onto this to play onto your real hardware. So technically I have every single Mega Drive game. But of course I do prefer to have the physical ones if and when I can. But some of them are just, well, Japanese or import ones, which I'll never buy probably. Or of course ones that are just stupid expensive, like Streets of Rage 3 for example. I'm never going to buy that. That's hundreds of pounds, which is ridiculous. But what's cool is also it lets you play Sega Master System games. Obviously I've got the power-based converter, but yeah, you can load your Sega Master System games from here, and more importantly, you can put ROMs, like ROM hacks and mods and homebrew games that you can find on the internet. You can add them to your SD card and actually play them on the real hardware rather than on an emulator, which I would genuinely always prefer to do where I can. Now, for recording purposes, I do tend to use emulators just for ease. I actually have no way of connecting my Mega Drives to my capture card, which is HDMI only. But you know, it's fine. That's what we all do. Let's be honest. But yeah, so I've also got the EverDrive, and the EverDrive, you know, I really like it. It's well worth the money, I would say, for sure. And I would like to get one for all of my systems, mainly for ease of use. Yeah, so I would recommend it, definitely. So there you go, that's my entire current Sega Mega Drive collection. It's pretty good. I like buying for the system. You often find good games out and about, so I do always pick them up when I see them for a fair deal. That's all I ask for, is a fair deal. What do you think? What other games should I be including in here? I will get more, don't you worry. And if you like this kind of video, let me know, because I've got plenty of other systems, and if you like this, I'll make it for all the other systems I own. So yeah, as always, on screen now you can see where you can follow me, so why not do so? I've got plenty of great content for everyone to enjoy. And now, all that's left for me to say is thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.